Hi Zoe.
Hi, Dad.
Do you know what we're talking about today? Today, we're talking about craniosynostosis. Hey guys, thanks for joining us on Cranio Family during Cranial Awareness Month. Today we're talking about what is craniosynostosis just on the other side of the break. So sit back, relax, and we'll see you soon.
Hey friends! So today we are covering the basic question that most people ask when they hear about craniosynostosis, which is what is it? What is craniosynostosis?
Right, so when we first heard the term, I literally said craniosyno what? And it took a while for us to have a really good understanding. So right out of the gate, let's go ahead and break down what that really long word means. So it's broken up from two parts, two root words, cranio, which means skull, and synostosis, which means fusion of bone. So when you put those together, you get exactly what craniosynostosis is without even really diving too deep, which is the premature fusion of bones in the skull. And that usually happens across these things called sutures.
The type of craniosuture that we are most familiar with is the one that was fused prematurely in our daughter Zoe, and that is her both of her coronal sutures. If you draw a line from the top of your ear to the top of the ear on the other side, there are two coronal sutures. Some children are born with just one side fused early, and some are both. So bicoronal, which is part of Zoe's diagnosis, it means both of her coronal sutures were fused prematurely.
And right down the center of the coronal sutures runs the metopic ridge, and there's another suture that runs there all the way to the top of the head, a little bit on the back side of it. And when a child is born, we all know about the soft spot. You got to be careful about the soft spot. Don't poke the soft spot. Don't let your brothers and sisters poke the soft spot. Things like that. And between the metopic and the coronal sutures, that creates the most forward portion of that soft spot on the top of the skull.
So then generally the most common type of cranio is known as sagittal. And the sagittal suture runs from that soft spot toward the back of the head. And it forms more of an oblong or a football-shaped type head, and so it's pretty easy to tell early on when a child is born with sagittal crania.
That suture runs into the lambdoid suture, which runs kind of like the coronal, but just along the back of the skull in an arc. It's what helps make that plate system all work for the brain. And the importance of all these plates and all these sutures is to allow the brain room to grow as the child develops. Child's brains grow at an exponential rate when they are very young and they're developing. That's why they need so many calories and so many nutrients. And as the brain grows, it allows those plates to flex by having those sutures in between them. And once the brain has finished developing, that's when we usually see, for most people, that the sutures begin to fuse.
And one additional thing we do want to touch on is defining plagiocephaly. And that also involves a misshapen growth of the head. And this is not caused by any fusion within the bone in the skull. And so it typically does not involve any surgical procedure to correct. It's more just a positional displacement that can be shaped using helmet therapy. And so we did want to just differentiate plagiocephaly from craniosynostosis. Craniosynostosis involves the fusion of the actual bone in the skull.
And just like that, in less than 10 minutes, you've learned a very complicated word that even when we talk to doctors about our daughter's condition, makes them do a double take. Today you've learned that craniosynostosis is the premature fusion of the sutures of the skull. You've learned what some of those sutures are and why they are important in the development of children. Thank you so much for stopping by on the very first day of Cranio Awareness Month. It's our goal every single day to have a new video out for you guys to teach you a little bit more about what we've learned in the last 5 years being parents of a child with craniosynostosis. If you want to learn more about our journey and where we come from, head over to our blog at www.craniofamilyblog.com and you can learn a lot more about us and our children there. Thanks so much for stopping by.
See you next time.